It's time for the Saturday morning cup of coffee with Paul the Waterman. Now, here's Paul.
Good morning. Welcome to Saturday Morning Coffee. I'm Paul the Waterman. How's everybody doing this week? So today's show, we're kind of going to recap what we covered last week, but more in depth. And, you know, what I found is something that I knew was a problem. Common sense told me that this was a problem, but I didn't actually have the proof. So what I did is I went ahead and typed in my AI search engine, I wanted to know the unregulated contaminants from the EPA that's in our drinking water. And boy, did I get a laundry list of unregulated contaminants. But what's in those unregulated contaminants is viruses, bacteria, hormones, all types of hormones, pharmaceuticals. We have hormones that prevent ovulation in women. We have hormones to change your body chemistry. We have hormones, we have testosterone, we have estrogen. It's in our drinking water. And they don't tell us. And so, Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman here on 1310 KFKA. It's really designed I want to educate everybody. I want everybody to know that, our drinking water is not safe. I want everybody to realize that, the water that you have coming out of the kitchen sink, it may look clean, it may smell clean, but it's not. There's hidden dangers in our tap water. I also found on this EPA's unregulated contamination list is that Fort Collins, the municipal water treatment facility in Fort Collins, participates in the study with the EPA. So they test for these unregulated contaminants and report right back to the EPA to let them know what their findings are. And eventually, and hopefully, some of these contaminants will they'll let the public know about instead of keeping it a secret. And the secret, what scares me about this, in all candidness, somebody, what if? Let's just start this way. Everybody's had a family member or a friend that's fought cancer. I'm sure everybody has had a family member or a friend who didn't die of the cancer. They died of something else, like pneumonia. I think pneumonia is one of the most common causes of, for folks that fight cancer, they end up dying of pneumonia. Well, what's happening is your body, it depletes its immune system with the drugs that they get for fighting cancer. But you're getting a virus. You can get the pneumonia virus, you can get the flu virus, you can get the stomach virus from the glass of water that you drink. And that's the most alarming thing. So COVID, let's talk about COVID real quick. Remember how fast COVID spread? COVID was like something that was an invisible monster. Remember when that first came out? COVID was something that, to me, was like this invisible monster that was floating all over the air and it was going to eat us up. And so everybody had to wear a mask. Well, guess what? You didn't get COVID from airborne. You got COVID from the glass of water you drank. So let's think about this. Do you remember when COVID first came out and the news stations were going to a wastewater treatment plant and they were testing for the COVID virus in the wastewater treatment plant? Think about how that happened, how that got there. Now, it got there in partly because the virus is in the water. It also got there because of human excretion, human waste. So, you got the virus, you use the restroom, the virus will leave your body. So the alarming thing that everybody should have raised a red flag is that they were testing for a live virus at the waste treatment plant. Why is that alarming? Because the chlorine content wasn't killing the virus. You have chlorine content in wastewater. You absolutely do. And here in the whole Colorado, Fort Collins, Greeley metro area, you guys are using a chloramine, which is a chlorine ammonia mixture. So the chlorine mixed with ammonia. The reason why they do that is because chlorine by itself would off-gas out of the water. So you add ammonia to it, it bonds with the chlorine, and the chlorine doesn't dissipate. So the scary thing, really, was that virus, the COVID virus, was testing positive in a waste treatment plant where it should not have been. So that tells me that the viruses adjust and they're becoming immune to chlorine. So chlorine content can kill bacteria, but then that's starting to scare me too, because what if, ladies and gentlemen, we have bacteria that's becoming antibiotic resistant? What if the bacteria start to become chlorine or chloramine resistant? So did you guys know, this is a recap, but did you guys know that the chloramine doesn't kill the virus or the bacteria, it sterilizes it, prevents it from multiplying. So in theory, viruses and bacteria don't have a long life. They rapidly reproduce, and as they're doing that, their lifespan is very short. So again, the fact that they were testing for the virus in a waste treatment plant is alarming. Okay, so back to topic. You get the stomach bug, glass of water. You get the cold, it's from a glass of water. Absolutely. So is COVID. Think about this. What about the times? Did you guys ever wonder in the news? They're telling you that let's say in Chicago, Illinois, they're going to predict the flu season is going to be really horrible. It's going to hit Chicago really bad, or it's going to hit Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, really bad, or they know exactly the type of virus strain that's going to be hitting us this flu and cold season. How do they know that? Because they test the water. They absolutely test the water. And this is something that, we have 12 dangerous microbes that are not regulated by the EPA. They're highly resistant to chlorine. This means that they could be in your tap water even after municipal water treatment. These microbes have the potential to cause serious illness or even death, especially in children, the elderly, and those who are immune compromised. Learn how to completely remove these pathogens from your water supply and do your own research. And the first thing to remove these pathogens is with an ultraviolet light filtration. We must learn about the water quality ourselves. We must learn how to filter the water ourselves. We must start taking accountability for the quality of our drinking water ourselves. The municipality is not designed to be 100% water filtration. They cannot provide you 100% pure, virus-free, pharmaceutical-free H2O. They're not set up that way. And the only way to remove these elements is through nanofiltration. That's submicron filtration. That's at 0.001 is the only way to really remove this. So that's a point of use reverse osmosis system or a whole house reverse osmosis system. So right now, the infrastructure in your municipality is not designed, nor do they have the technology to do an on-demand commercial reverse osmosis filtration system. And why do I say they don't have the technology? Well, I guess the technology is there. They could implement it, but you're talking about billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure upgrade. The tax dollars aren't there. So one of the things that we should be doing and prioritizing in our community is our drinking water and improving the infrastructure in our drinking water. Right now, on a side note, folks that live in homes that were built in the 70s, do you realize that in the copper pipes that are in your home, you have lead solder? Lead solder. And so with the chlorination and the chloramine that's in the water to disinfect your water can be leaching lead because of the lead solder. Chlorine in the water pipes can cause the lead to leach out of the lead solder that basically holds those pipes together. So that's something else. See, there's so much going on with our water quality that if you really think about it, it's scary and it can boggle your mind. I mean, there's so many things. And again, that's why we're here, Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman is just to educate everybody out there and let you know, hey, this is what's really going on with our water. This is absolutely what's happening with our water supply. You guys can go to our website at waterpros.net, and we have everything there for you. We have a segment that's specifically designed about the bacteria that's allowed in our water supply and the viruses that's allowed in our water supply. And you can see for yourself, and we're going to go over some of this information on today's show. So one of the things that we're going to have to talk about is we're going to want ultraviolet light filtration in our home, absolutely. But the other thing we're going to want, too, is point of use reverse osmosis. But we need to start out with the water test because hard water can affect absolutely the proper operation of an ultraviolet light filtration system in a point of use reverse osmosis system. So let's take our first time out. When we come back, we're going to continue on this topic. This is Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman on AM 1310 KFKA. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. And I appreciate you spending your Saturday morning with me. I'm Paul the Waterman, Paul Dowding. I'm the owner of Water Pros, and this is Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman. Risk of unregulated microbes in our drinking water. Why your tap water could make you very sick. One of the things that the stomach virus, stomach flu, you can absolutely get that from your tap water. Have you guys thought about the cruise ships? And you heard with these cruise ships, they had the norovirus that broke out through the cruise ship. How do you think that got to be such a widespread contaminant? It's from the drinking water. So that means that the cruise ship, the tank that they store the water, was contaminated, and so the people that were drinking the water were drinking contaminated water. And I have a question on a side note. Do cruise ships have their own little water treatment operator? Do they have a licensed water treatment operator working on that cruise ship that's monitoring the quality of water that they're feeding the passengers? Because if they did, then they'd have to ensure that they have proper chlorine content. See, are you guys aware that a school, a private preschool on well water or municipal water supply has to be or required by the state to make sure there's chlorine content in the drinking water? I believe the minimum chlorine content for something like that is between 0.4 part per million. Now, I don't think it should exceed 1 part per million, but a minimum of 0.4 part per million of chlorine content. Why is that? So the water is safe to drink and it sterilizes any viruses or bacteria. That's what the bottom line is. So a municipal private school, even a church, if you have a church that has a school, do you know that church is, depending on if they're over, I think the number is 30, 35 kids, they're required to have chlorination in their water supply? Absolutely. So, that's something, if you have a church that does a private school, you want to, bring to their attention, hey, do you realize that the water that we're feeding the kids has to have a Class D operator, a Class D operator with the state, and the water needs to be monitored and tested and treated with chlorine content. And that's absolutely designed, to make sure that the water is safe and sanitary because of these purposes right here. So, chlorination has been the backbone of public water disinfection for more than a century, and it remains highly effective against many common bacteria and viruses. But however, now we're finding that now not all these microbes are equally vulnerable to chlorine, and some inherently resist, and are capable of mutating to becoming even stronger when not fully killed by the chlorine. Think about the big picture here. If that virus isn't killed by the chlorine content, what else is in the water that virus and bacteria especially bacteria, can adjust to. Any kind of viral medication, right? When you take any kind of medication to fight a virus and your body expels it, you're putting it right back into the water supply. So could that virus then adapt to that medication? Antibiotics. Antibiotics is something that is absolutely in our water supply. But think about this. How many bacteria are out there now that are resistant to antibiotics? Why is that? Well, if bacteria is in our water and the chlorine's not killing the bacteria and we keep flushing the toilet and adding more antibiotics to the water for the bacteria to adjust to, is that the reason? So some of these hospitals have these superbugs that are resistant to antibiotics. And lately, there's news that there's a fungus that's resistant to antibiotics. That's pretty scary. So is that because of all the antibiotics that we expel and we put right back into the waste treatment plant that ends up going right back into our water? Because everything is recyclable, ladies and gentlemen. Everything in our water supply is recyclable, reusable. Especially, we mentioned this last week, the growth of this community, Greeley, Loveland, Fort Collins, pretty soon everybody's going to be at a percentage of reusable water. Your neighbors to the south are, there's a town, Castle Rock is 35% reusable water, and it's going to go higher. So there's only so much water resources. And our government officials have thought they're going to follow the model that's in San Diego, California. San Diego, California is almost 100% reusable water. That means it's from the toilet to the tap. So if bacteria is becoming antibiotic resistant and they keep on searching for different antibiotics that they can use, and it's up to our body to help fight this, is this the reason why? Is because of all the antibiotics that we put into the water supply. See, you have to understand that when you take a medication, your body metabolizes that, and then when you expel that medication, it's called a metabolic, and it doesn't disappear. It doesn't go away. It stays in the water supply. Especially some of these medications, I'm learning, are made with the forever chemical. Forever chemicals, the PFAS, the PFOs, PFAS, Gen X, some of these chemicals are put in the medication so they last. So they won't break down. They won't disappear. And then we have microplastics in a water supply. Think about what happens with microplastics in the water supply. You could get a virus or a bacteria that can attach itself to the microplastic, and it's introduced to your body that way. Think about that. And so any kind of bacteria, studies have shown that attach itself to a microplastic. There's some sort of film that covers over that bacteria that makes it really tough for the body to fight against, and any kind of antibiotics at that point. So what happens when we fight a virus? You basically, when you get immunized for a virus, they inject you with a dead virus so your body can see that dead virus, adapt to that dead virus, so then when the live virus comes in, it can attack and fight it. So this is something that it's going to make it tough because the viruses are adapting. And if the viruses are adapting, especially the stomach flu. Stomach flu is something, and when everybody gets the stomach flu, gastrointestinal illness, 9 times out of 10, we think it's something that we ate. We never stop to think, gosh, is it the drinking water? Is it the glass of water? Is it the iced tea that I made with my water supply? Is it the Kool-Aid? So this is something, the coffee. So this is something I want to bring to everybody's attention. Many pathogens are not regulated by the EPA. Why? Why is that? And that's a great, great question. The EPA has a microprobe candidate list. So, they call it the candidate list because it's something that, it's a candidate to be regulated, but not yet. And think of the candidate. I'll give you an example. 1,4-dioxin. 1,4-dioxin is an industrial solvent that's been on the EPA's unregulated contamination list for over 150 years. Seriously. 1,4-dioxin. Look it up. You can Google it. So this microbe candidate list for contamination, the EPA's had this list since the 1990s. They've known about this since the 1990s. And so, pathogens that are under consideration, to be on the EPA's regulated contaminant list, they've been debating whether or not to regulate serious disease-causing agents in our drinking water for over 30 years. So it's been over 30 years that they've known that these viruses and bacteria in pharmaceuticals, these microbes, have been on the list that can lead to severe illness, especially in seniors, children, and those that with immune system issues. So for over 30 years, and if you're on well water, well water owners, you're even more vulnerable because your water is not chlorinated. Think about that. You can have viruses and bacteria. Now, the common bacteria we test for in well water is coliform and E. coli. But you don't test for any other, the flu virus, the norovirus. You don't test for, any kind of other bacteria that can, and we'll go over that here later in the show, the bacteria that's in the water supply that causes, the tummy issues, the stomach flu. So, people on well water, think about this. Well water folks should absolutely have an ultraviolet light filtration system, point of use reverse osmosis system. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to need a water softener to support those, the first two. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue in this topic. This is Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman here on Northern Colorado's 1310 KFKA. Thank you for being with me this morning. So we have one of the viruses that's in our water supply, and you can find this in waterpros.net. We have all this information up there, is the adenoid virus. The adenoid virus is absolutely in our water supply. And so what we have with the adenoid virus causes a range of illnesses, including respiratory infection, pink eye, and gastrointestinal disease. So the health risk in healthy people is illness usually mild, in infants, transplant patients, people with compromised immune systems can hurt you the most. But it can lead to severe pneumonia and systemic infection. Adenoid virus has a protective protein that surrounds it and makes it highly resistant to chlorine. So that's something that, we have to, be concerned about. The other issue let's talk about that I want to bring to your attention is called the Calciv virus. I'm not pronouncing this properly, and forgive me for this. CALCIV, the classic virus, or the classic virus. This family includes the norovirus. This is the leading cause of viral gastrointestinitis. So the health risk for this virus, which is part of the norovirus, can cause intense vomiting and diarrhea. Dehydration is the main danger, and particularly for young children and other adults. It can also lead to chronic illness, and the outbreak spreads rapidly, just like it. So we use that example in cruise ships. So the norovirus is a member of the family that has the protective protein that's capsaicin and is highly resistant to antibiotics. So that means that this virus has a protein, has a covering, a coating on it. And then that coating protects it from chlorination or the disinfection. So think about this. We have 2 viruses we identified so far. And it's something that they have a protective coating that prevents them from being destroyed or sterilized on a chlorination. So they survive. I wonder if we knew this, what we would think if they made this public. If we went to the doctor's office every time we were treated for an illness like this, and then they told us, don't drink your water. Or if they told us to drink bottled water. And I'm not sure bottled water is something we can trust on a side note, but that's my point. if anybody out there goes and has a sinus procedure where they have their nose operated on, if they have to have their sinuses, cleaned out and opened up through surgery, and then they want you to do nasal rinsing, what's the first thing they tell you after that procedure? They say when you do your nasal rinse, they say use distilled water. Reverse osmosis water is just as good, but distilled water is absolutely free of bacteria. So let's talk about reverse osmosis water. I just said RO water is just as good. So one of the things about RO, reverse osmosis, is the membrane is small enough to capture and trap the virus, but it doesn't kill it. So in theory, the virus or the bacteria eventually could overrun that reverse osmosis system. So that's why a whole house ultraviolet light is so important in this scenario. Ultraviolet light filtration in the UV light will zap the bacteria or virus and prevent them from multiplying. So that's something, if you want 100% protection, ultraviolet light filtration, and then you can do the UV then the reverse osmosis filtration. Let's go with this microbacteria. Mycobacteria. This is in our water supply. It's unregulated. The EPA knows it's there. And so this mycobacteria, two types of microbacterium are on the EPA's candidate list, M. avium and M. abscessus. Both species are fast-growing, non-tuberculosis microbacteria found in water and soil, which the health risk can cause lung and skin and soft tissue infection, particularly dangerous for people with cystic fibrosis or weakened immune systems, and is highly resistant to antibiotics. This is in our water supply. This is usually harmless to healthy people, but it can be serious disseminated infections with people that are fighting HIV and patients with other immune suppression diseases. So this is in our drinking water. It's MYCO, mycobacteria, and out of that, this is a mycobacterium. Two parts are listed as M. avium, AVIUM, and M. abscessus, ABESSUS. All this information is, again, on waterpros.net. You can check it out and see for yourself. But this is the bacteria that's in our water. And again, if it's in our drinking water and it's an unregulated contaminant, I just think we need to be concerned because it's there and they're not telling us, and we need to know about this. We should be able to make up our own decision on what we want to do and how much water we want to consume if we know that our water is full of viruses and bacteria. That's my concern. I think the bottom line is that you can't depend on chlorination. You can't depend on a chloramine. You can't depend on your municipality to give you clean, clear, healthy drinking water. You can't. Chlorination reduces the risk, but it's not fully sterilizing the water. This is why every household should employ additional safety measures to ensure their most vulnerable family members, young children and babies, are not exposed to something that could make them very sick. And that's where we're at today. That's the truth of it. Now, again, you can find this out. You go to a search engine. You can go to any AI search engine, because what the AI search engine is going to do is going to search the EPA website itself. That's exactly what I did, and that's how I got all this information. The AI search engine, by searching the EPA's website, gave us all this information regarding bacteria and antibiotics and also hormones that are in our drinking water. So the viruses, bacteria, and hormones are all in our drinking water. One of the things that concern me the most is our growth in population, because then what's going to happen is the concentration levels of certain contaminants are going to become higher. The concentration levels of certain medication. One of the big things about medication in our drinking water that bother me the most are hormones. Are hormones that people use to augment their bodies. Testosterone and estrogen. Used in the wrong application, and if it's opposite of what your body makeup is, then the body's instantly, automatically going to do everything it can to get rid of it. So think about this. A person who wants to augment their body chemistry, their body makeup, and go from one gender to the next, not only are they putting their lives at risk, but they're putting everybody else at risk. And I'm just going to go out there and say it because it's a medical fact. So they have to have such high doses of that hormone to make a difference, to make a change in their body, and they're doing damage to the body, because then what's going to happen is the body is going to look at that as a foreign substance and get rid of it. And so when they get rid of it, it ends up in the water supply where we drink it. That is just a fact. You can't deny that. We drink that. So these are things that as our community grows, and when we get from a reusable water state, so right now, the theory is that we can dump everything in the pool of water. It's going to be diluted. So by the time we take it back again, all these contaminants are diluted to such a degree that it really is not going to affect us. But that is just not the case. Especially if over the last 30 years, they've known about these viruses and bacteria that's in our water supply, and they know that they're resistant to chlorine. And the city of Fort Collins is participating and giving the EPA test results of what they're testing in the water supply, but they don't share it with us because it's an unregulated, meaning they don't have to. This is Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Thank you for being with me. I'm Paul Dowding, Paul the Waterman. This is 1310 KFKA. And so here in our last segment, I don't mean to sound so excited like I did, but it really bothers me. And it's something I think we all should really in some way be excited about. We need to know what's really going on. Hormones in our water supply. So I have a question for you. I don't know, I'm 56 years old. I don't remember growing up as a kid hearing anything about a classmate that told me that, I remember going to school with that decided they were really a boy in a girl's body, or really, a girl in a boy's body. I don't remember any of that. I don't. That never seemed to be a problem back then. So my question, I ask this, is this happening at a scale today because of the hormones in our drinking water? I think it's okay for me to ask this question because there is hormones in our drinking water. The EPA is not telling us the truth. So I'm just asking that question. Could that be the reason? And what about all these other cancers that we're getting? Young people, and the colon cancer, for goodness gracious sake, is spiking. Is that because, what we're drinking in our water? So E. coli is common. It's a common bacteria. It's a toxin that's a strain of E. coli is associated with severe intestinal infections, urinary tract infections, and even a blood infection. E. coli is common in well water. So now everybody knows that's on well water. If you had E. coli, you shock the heck out of it with chlorine, using industrial strength chlorine, and you kill what's on the surface, but it doesn't go away. Chlorination is not a fix-all. It's a short-term solution. And I've talked about this before. I think in certain situations, it's almost unethical to chlorinate your well when you're trying to sell the house. But if you got a bacteria problem, you chlorinate it. It's a short-term fix. Yeah, it passed. There's no more bacteria, but doesn't mean that bacteria is not going to come back. And I don't think it's fair for the new owners to assume that, hey, my water's great, when deep down inside it really isn't. And that's something that, we have to be truthful about. And, you can say, yeah, we've had a bacteria. Yeah, we passed. There's no bacteria right now. But, we recommend you get it treated. So ultraviolet light filtration can zap a bacteria. Ultraviolet light is measured in joule ratings, and so you want a UV light that's strong enough that can filter. The minimum size of an ultraviolet light filtration system you should have in your home is 10 gallons per minute. That's the minimum. Most homes should be able to treat 15 gallons per minute. And that's because if you can go online and buy these small UVs, but, majority of those are only 4 gallons per minute. What is 4 gallons a minute? That's one shower. And so if you're taking a shower and you draw the water from someplace else, the water flows too fast where the UV can't zap it, and then you have no protection at all. So the minimum ultraviolet light filtration should be about 10 gallons a minute. And then I think the standard you should be is about 15 gallons a minute. But you need to have treated water because ultraviolet light will not function in hard water. Absolutely will not function in hard water at all. Any kind of ion content. So that's why pre-treatment is always advised. And then the reverse osmosis is really good as a polisher because then, the dead bacteria and virus caucuses will be removed by the reverse osmosis, but the reverse osmosis can attack the pharmaceuticals. And that's, next week's show. I'm going to go over the laundry list of pharmaceuticals and hormones that are in our water supply. We need to know this stuff. This is something that, everybody needs to be aware of. Go to waterpros.net, and on our website, you will, on the main page, we'll have a big banner that says, "Attention, your tap water may be infected." And below that, there's a button that says Learn More, and you'll see everything that I've been sharing with you on today's show. And my team, I'm really grateful. They did a great job putting this up on our website and sharing all this information. Let's go one more. And this is called the enterovirus. Enterovirus or polio is a large group of viruses that can affect the gastrointestinal tract, the nervous system. This class of virus includes the polio, Coxsackie virus, and the echovirus. The health risks of most infectious are mild, but some strains can cause meningitis, myocarditis, or paralysis, particularly dangerous for infants, children, and people that have compromised immune systems. So this is in our water supply. This is part of the EPA unregulated contaminant list. And again, all this information I'm sharing with you today, you can absolutely find on the EPA's website. I would use an AI search engine and type in, give me the list of unregulated contaminants from the EPA. And so the EPA has it in its website, but it's not out and open for everybody to see. So I want to bring to everybody's attention this thought. With the continuous growth in water usage, especially up here in northern Colorado, Timoth is growing like crazy. Just because you have naturally soft water in certain areas doesn't mean your water is free of these viruses and bacteria. So everybody think about getting a point of use reverse osmosis drinking water filtration system. It should be supported by a whole house ultraviolet light. So if you're fortunate enough to live, because I know parts of Timoth, Colorado is almost naturally soft water. Parts of Louisville and Lafayette are almost naturally soft water. So when that's the case, then a whole house ultraviolet light will be perfect. And then, the reverse osmosis, because there is pharmaceuticals, there is hormones in our drinking water. For everybody else out there that has good old-fashioned hard water, what the water softener does is the water softener provides soft water to allow these other two filtration systems to work and do their job. But another thing with soft water is that you use less cleaning and soap products. And like 1,4-dioxin, which is a contaminant that's unregulated, but it's been in our water supply for over 150 years. It started out as an industrial stabilizer. 1,4-dioxin is also in our laundry soap and shampoo, believe it or not. And also remember, when we take that hot, steamy shower, whatever virus or bacteria is in our water, we're breathing that in. Absolutely, we're breathing that in, and these are things that we need to be concerned about. Think outside the box, ladies and gentlemen. Let common sense be your guiding way. And just realize that these people are not being truthful to us. And these people, it's the EPA. And the EPA allows our water treatment facility not to tell us. So, in closing, for those people who pay attention and get in the mail once a year a water quality report from their district, especially if you're in a small HOA that has its own water filtration system that's feeding your homeowner, your subdivision, your water district once a year gives you a water quality report. It's mandated by law. But if that water quality report if it doesn't tell you everything, are you not getting a false sense of security? If it doesn't tell you, hey, these are the contaminants that are not tested for or reported to you, but we test for them behind the scenes. So the EPA's laundry list of unregulated contaminants means that the contaminant's there, but your municipality is not required to report it and share it with you. And that's what has to change. We want transparency. Transparency has to start with our water quality because water quality is life. These antibiotics, bacteria that's antibiotic resistant, these viruses that we get from drinking our water, we're making sick. And heaven forbid if we had a loved one, mom or dad, son or daughter that's fighting cancer, and we give them a glass of water, and it's the virus in the glass of water that can push them over the edge. That's not right. That's not fair. That's why we need to know what's going on. We need to know exactly what's in our water supply, and we deserve to know. Thank you for listening. This has been Saturday Morning Coffee with Paul the Waterman here in KFKA 1310. I'm Paul Dowding. If you have any questions, feel free. You can reach me at 720-951-4130. I'd love to hear from you. That's 720-951-4130. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Be blessed. And I look forward to talking to everybody next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.